What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another video. As a lot of you know, I have been borrowing a friend's Surly Wednesday fat bike, 4-inch tire, studded tire, so I've been riding it in the snow and having a lot of fun. I'm going to talk about the specifics of riding that bike a little later in this video. The one thing I wanted to talk about first was the shifting on this bike. I am a Shimano guy, almost all my stuff is Shimano, and this has SRAM flat bars, obviously. And the one thing I noticed was that when you're shifting this bike, you use your thumb in both positions, and there's a pretty big gap between that. And I guess the benefit is that your hand is staying on the bars completely, like your hand is staying wrapped around the bars, but it really felt weird and it felt like a big gap. It's not something I didn't get used to, and after, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes out on the bike, I'm just shifting pretty naturally. But I just thought like, wow, this does not seem like as good of a system. And I admittedly grew up riding the same bike for 15 years and still ride it in the winter. So I'm definitely used to that Shimano style of your hand going back and forth. So when I was doing one of my live streams with Party Size Cycling, he had mentioned, did you know that on Shimano, you could shift the lever that goes into the smaller cog in either direction? And I was kind of like, what exactly does he mean? He explained it a little more, then I was like, okay. And I know we were drinking a couple beers during the stream, and I think after I went and tried it and thought about it, but then kind of forgot about that whole thing. So since some of the snow has melted and I've taken the gunner out again, which is flat bar, 10-speed Shimano, I was riding along and I realized since I'd been riding the fat bike, I was shifting the bike like it was SRAM. It didn't even cross my mind till I realized this lever does go in both directions. Not only does it go in both directions, but it's ergonomically designed to do it really well. So they've put the plastic a little wider, and so if your thumb's pushing it, it's got a flat part for that. If you're pulling it like you would older Shimano with your index finger, it's got a position for that. And the levers are closer together, so it's a little easier to reach if you do it SRAM style. So it just really got me to thinking the idea that there's no way you could say you like SRAM better, because Shimano does the same thing even better than SRAM does, or you could shift traditionally like the way I came up shifting Shimano levers. So one thing I'm interested in finding out is, did everyone know this except me? So let me know in the comments, did you know that Shimano lever went both directions, or did you not know that either? And this is gonna blow your mind the next time you go out to ride your bike. And so like I said, I adapt to whatever I'm riding. I think most people do. If you always rode SRAM, it's all you know and it's not gonna be an issue. If you always rode Shimano, maybe you learned something new. Maybe you're like, this dude's an idiot, how did he not know that? But either way, there's no world in which I don't think you could say the mechanical flat bar shifting is better on SRAM, because Shimano does it both ways. The other thing is, same with drop bars. I just think when I've borrowed drop bar SRAM bikes, I really don't like that kind of shifting. But again, after 20, 25 minutes, I'm usually just used to it and it doesn't really matter anymore. But again, there's no world in which the Shimano system is not more intuitive. If you took two people who hadn't ridden drop bars and put them on a bike, they'll figure out the Shimano system faster. That's just a fact. And you could still prefer SRAM. When it comes to that level of intuitiveness, it's Shimano all the way. So on this channel, people don't ask me too much about electronic shifting, but my opinion on it is basically that I borrowed the gunner when it was still Otis from Dirty River Bicycle Works, and he had SRAM electronic shifting on it, and it was really nice. My whole thing with electronic shifting is it's not nice enough to justify the cost, and that's just my opinion. I think it works great. It was fun to ride. I just feel like that's not what I'm going to spend my money on. So Andrew, Party Size Cycling, and my friends over at STS Bikes both prefer the electronic SRAM shifting, and it's just because how easy it is to set up, which I fully understand. And I get that that's probably a lot easier, that it is a lot easier than Shimano because of their system. I think basically Shimano can't get around some of SRAM's patents, but you can't really feel bad for Shimano because over their history, they have definitely been using patents to their advantage as well. So in an earlier video, I showed myself picking up one of these Portland Design Work fork light mounts from Dirty River Bicycle Works. And in the comments, I hadn't tried it yet, and it seemed like another item that kind of splits opinions. So I mounted my RN 2000 on here. This is an Olight. Olight isn't making bike lights anymore, but Magic Shine still is. I really like their lights. They're sleek, they're USB-C. They look better than the Night Riders, it's just a fact. But if you care about that. But one of the things that people talked about is the wheel shadow that you get when you mount your lights here. One of the reasons I wanted to try it out is because I do run the big bags, especially in winter. And when we're doing, it doesn't matter on the roads, it doesn't bother me around the city. It's when we're doing off-road stuff and I don't know the terrain that well, I just can't see the road right in front of me. So I wanted to try this out. One thing I was worried about is my lights are Garmin mount style, and I thought that maybe I wouldn't be able to get it on and off by the fork, but even with this bigger light, it's actually not an issue, thank God. What I did to mitigate the shadow light is I still just put one of my other lights on the bars. So I have that one shining out a little farther ahead, and then I have this one down there. The shadow from the wheel, I do think it is a little annoying. I'm sure another thing, just like shifting, I'll end up getting a little more used to it, but doing the dual light setup works. Not everyone keeps around 2 bike lights. I get that, but that's kind of my solution. I know even some people double up the lights on the fork. I don't know, wouldn't you still have a shadow down the middle? Let me know. But either way, I do like it. It's solving a problem that I have, which is seeing the road right in front of me for now. Speaking of Portland Design Works, they did send me some full metal black breakaway fenders. I have not installed them yet. I've just unboxed them and checked them out. I was thinking of putting them on the gunner. They would fit that size, so I could just kind of compare them to the Planet Bike ones I have on there. I was kind of hoping to wait for another project, but I don't think that's going to come through in time. And so I'll switch those out and we'll talk about those in a future video. But people have seen them in the background and been asking about them, so I figured I should at least bring up what I got going on there. 29 by 2.5. A little more show and tell here. My buddy Carl has sent me these Wald basket mounts. Pretty cool concept. Use the GoPro finger. So basically what you can do is you could mount your light on the front of the Wald basket, kind of solving the same problem I was talking about with getting your light to shine over a bag. Also, you could use it to mount your computer, obviously the GoPro with those fingers, so just a pretty unique solution to be able to mount stuff on the outside of your Wald baskets. You can see how it comes apart here, and then you would just tighten those bolts down anywhere you wanted to put it. So pretty unique solution, and so thanks to Carl for that. He also printed these really cool little crates and these little cat things for your press-to-valve stems. So some of you know my winter cycling has been a story of 2 absolute opposites. So riding that Surly Wednesday fat bike, and then also sometimes riding inside on my new, to me, bike trainer. Well, it is a brand new bike trainer. It's just not the latest model. I like both. They're 2 completely different things. And one thing I have found really weird is whenever I show the bike trainer, people will say stuff, and even good friends, I prefer to ride outside. Here's the thing. I prefer to ride outside. And I've said this line a million times on my videos and to people in real life. I don't ride the bike trainer instead of riding outside. I ride the bike trainer instead of not riding. But the other thing is, this thing is a workout machine. Like, I'm riding it to get a workout. And there's something weird in cycling that I've been thinking about a lot lately. If someone who's a cyclist says they went for a run in the morning, no one's like, why didn't you ride your bike? Or if they go to the gym, or if they do yoga, name anything. Like, no other cyclist then is going to say, why didn't you just ride your bike instead? But if you ride a bike-shaped thing in a different way than a normal bicycle, it's always, I prefer to ride outside. Why would you ride a bike trainer? It's like, yeah, this is going to the gym for me. This is riding when I can't ride. This winter has been tough to be outside. And again, I'm someone who has videos riding in 14-degree weather in a blizzard. I'm not opposed to being out in bad conditions, but there are rainy, cold conditions that I don't like. There's icy conditions that I don't like. Sometimes there's the bike trail is just impassable with frozen in footprints, even on studded tires. So for me, that's really the thing. And one, let me also say, if someone wants to just ride a bike trainer because that's what they want to do, I'm not opposed to that either. I'm just saying in my specific case, and the fact that my videos tend to be alt cycling, I definitely get more of the comments than I think a general, GCN or road type channel would. So what I've been relating it to is e-bikes a little bit, and how the criticism comes from the opposite end, where someone goes out and rides an e-bike and then you get that 30% of people or whatever that's like, oh, their person's cheating. And it's when someone goes who rides a bike and drives their car to work every day, nobody's like, oh, you're cheating. And people who ride e-bikes, I think the percentage has to be like above 90, that they're not people who are riding an e-bike instead of riding a full mechanical bike. They're riding an e-bike instead of taking the bus, driving a car, or going for a hike. They're people who are not usually just going to be riding a mechanical bike anyways. As I've mentioned, the channel got sent that one e-bike, which I liked a lot. I rode it a few times. I just, at this point in my life, don't need it. I gave it to my dad. My dad has had some heart issues. He's super healthy, super strong, rode a bike his whole life, but he's not allowed to get above a certain level of exertion. So what he's been doing is taking the bike, and then he just kicks on the power when it needs to go up the hills and stuff like that. Or the same way I was using it, almost like gears when you start up from a red light, because it is heavier to get you up to speed and then just start pedaling. And again, so I don't think you need to have health issues to ride an e-bike, but it just seems weird that no one will ever criticize you for taking some other form of transportation or going for a walk, but all of a sudden you ride an e-bike and it's a big deal. And me and Party Size were talking about this stupid thing that I keep hearing, and I know it comes from these pure chachi jock roadies about like where the batteries come from and the chemicals are bad and the mining practices and the forced labor, blah, 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 all this stuff, which is all true. But if you own a car, do you think all those parts are not coming from anything like that? It's just weird that this becomes this environmental criticism when we talk about e-bikes. But, you know, you got one of these in your pocket. You probably, like me, have a couple TVs around. So unless you're living like off the grid in a cabin, I just don't want to hear the battery of the e-bike criticism. So everybody wants to know my opinion on the fat bike. I've kind of said it in the videos where I've been riding it out in the snow. It's a ton of fun. I absolutely love riding it in the snow. If I owned one, it would always be the bike I chose for that. What a lot of people say when I say that is they're fun in a lot of other situations too. I believe it. I can see riding it, especially in like sandy stuff. I always say I think Michigan is one of the perfect states for them because in the summer they have these sandy trails and then they get more snow than we do here. Another question people keep saying, like, so are you a fat bike convert? And what I have to say is I was never against fat bikes, so to say a convert would be a little weird. But the thing is, if you're asking if I'm going to go out and purchase one, I'm not. I'm not saying I never would. I'm not saying I wouldn't come across a deal on one or anything like that and maybe have one at some point. It's just for me, even though, like I said, if I owned one, it is the bike I would ride in the snow all the time. My rides are usually so mixed terrain at other times of year that's why I really like the ATB or the gravel bike. It just, sometimes I'm overbiked, sometimes I'm underbiked, but it's the best bike to split the difference for the kind of riding I do. So if I go to the mountain bike trails around here, I almost always ride to them. My ride might have 8 miles of mountain bike trails and 35 miles of road and gravel. And so I'm not sure, well, I could say right now, I'm pretty sure that the fat bike isn't what I would grab if it was sitting here in my arsenal. And I mentioned this too, some of our winters, we just don't get any snow. Like we'll get some, maybe I get 1 or 2 snow rides in. So I just feel like it would sit too much for me to invest in. You know, granted, I know I say that with a wall full of vintage road bikes that are just sitting there that I don't ride much anymore, but my collection is pretty cheap stuff. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm not against the idea. I'm having an absolute blast with it. I hope I get a couple more chances to ride it. To talk about my actual bike trainer for a minute, it is the original Wahoo Kicker Core. They have a newer version out. I believe one of the big deals with that is it has Wi-Fi. So if you do serious racing, there's something that I think it verifies more instead of just Bluetooth. I'm not 100% sure. I don't race. I actually don't even do true workouts on my bike trainer. I usually do group events or I just free ride routes. I just like to pedal hard for, you know, usually about an hour, and that's just that's how I get my workout. I have a kind of an audio or not very visual podcast on one stream and then Zwift on the other screen, and I'm kind of paying attention to that, and I'm shifting gears and riding the hills. For me, coming from the wheel-on trainer, the SARS M2, which I never really liked that much, going to a direct drive trainer, it's such a huge upgrade that for me, I don't know what the even better bike trainers may have. So this one's usually on sale now for about $400. So not nothing, but for how good it is, and for how good it is for me, it's great. It's just no issues, nothing I have to worry about. It paired up instantly. My bike went on it really easily. I have 9-speed cog on this older bike, and it went right on with just an extra spacer because, you know, most people are gonna have 10, 11, 12, whatever now. But yeah, when I'm doing group rides and everything, where I am in the group, it feels to be pretty accurate. My other one seemed to kind of wander all over the place and had to do the spin down test all the time. I was doing a race on that one, or not a race, but a group ride a few years ago, and I realized I was way off the front, and I'm like, this is not because I'm that much stronger, it's because my trainer is getting bad readings or something. So if you are someone who's gonna ride on the apps and do group stuff, it is more fun to have your trainer be in line, at least close to how you're actually riding. So yeah, just to sum it up, like with a bike trainer, if the weather flips and we get 2 weeks of dry weather, I won't touch the trainer probably at all, unless I was maybe in some kind of time crunch, but unusual for me too. So a trainer like this that can just sit is much better than the wheel-on trainer where tire pressure affects everything and all that. So whatever, for me, the fact that the trainer is more expensive also makes it better for being used less, which is, I don't know, kind of, I guess, ironic. So yeah, the last thing for today is on New Year's Eve, I'd finished the Festa 500, did that fat bike ride outdoors. But then after that, I was heading to a New Year's party that was only going to be like 1.5 miles away. And so I was just going to ride my old trek with the studded tires there. It was snowing like crazy. The reason I didn't want to ride the Surly Wednesday is because, oh yeah, I got to undo the brakes on this to get this off. It's not my bike, and I didn't want to leave it outside somewhere. It would be fine at the place we we're at, but you know how it is. That's just how I feel. When something's not mine, I'm not parking it somewhere where I have to think about it at all. Anyway, so I went to ride this bike, realized the tire was a little low, no big deal. So I'm like, I will fill it up. Pressed the valve was a little bent. I went to push it back and it just snapped off, the core thing. And so, or that nut, whatever you call that. And so I pushed on it and it's still letting air out and in. So I put the pump on it and I pumped it up and it took air. I'm like, I'm only going 1.5 miles. Maybe this will be fine. And then when I pulled the pump head off, the valve just came out and all the air went out of the tire. These tubes are almost antiques now because I think they've always been in these studded tires. I've never flatted on these tires. So I don't know. I said in the video about the studs, how old these are. What is this, 2018? I can't remember. But it's funny because I just asked Otis at Dirty River. I'm like, these tubes are so old. Should I even think about it? Is it something you need to worry about at all? And he was like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And then, of course, it broke. But yeah, not in the way that I would have thought. I remember these tires being a real pain to get on and off because I did the first year I had them still put normal tires for summer back on this bike. Didn't have as many bikes and I still ride this year around. Now it is just completely for winter riding. That wasn't too bad, actually. That was pretty easy. I know I've cut my hand on the studs before and yeah. So anyways, I'm gonna finish getting that tube switched out. The bike shop's not open today, so I'll probably ride up there tomorrow to get a backup tube to make sure I have something. Like I said, I've never flatted on these tires, but definitely don't want to be stuck on a very cold winter day without a tube in an emergency situation. I actually haven't been riding that much this second week in January. I just had a lot of other projects I'm working on and the weather, like I said, has been pretty iffy. So I'm gonna get that finished up and then decide if the weather's good enough to ride outside. I think it's gonna be 40 today and dry, so I'll check on that and I might do an outdoor ride. Also, the Tour de Zwift is going on, so I did the first stage of that. So if we get some bad weather, I'm gonna try and finish that as well. So do one or the other, but that's gonna be it for today. That's also why this was not a riding video because I simply have not been riding, so just working on other things. Thanks as always for watching. I will see you in the next one. Peace.